We're going to move on to the next item of business, which is topical questions. And our first question today is from Neil Findlay.
Thanks, President Officer. Can I declare an interest? My mum's a resident in a care home. To ask the Scottish Government what action it is taking to ensure that safe care home visiting can take place.
Cabinet Secretary Stephen Freeman.
We continue to take a number of steps to support safe visiting. We issued guidance on the 3rd of December for care homes and visitors over the festive period, which reiterates that care homes should support indoor visiting where it is safe to do so. We're introducing asymptomatic testing for designated visitors as an added measure alongside PPE and infection prevention and control. The rollout of 14 early adopter care homes started this week, and lateral flow testing kits will be delivered to all care homes across Scotland during the course of next week. Where a home can't make initial use of the lateral flow devices, PCR tests will be made available. And in consultation with Directors of Public Health Scotland and the Chief Medical Officer, we're now recommending that the period of closure to new admissions and to visitors following an outbreak is reduced to 14 days from 28 days.
Neil Findlay.
Thanks, President Officer. At the weekend, families of care home residents, health and social care workers, trade union reps, MSPs from all the opposition parties, lawyers, journalists and public figures wrote to the First Minister about the lack of contact between families and their loved ones in care homes. Despite assurances that we can have regular visiting up to 4 hours, close contact and hold the hand of our loved ones, for the overwhelming majority of families this bears no relation to reality. They have even less contact than before the Cabinet Secretary's announcements. This situation, Cabinet Secretary, it cannot continue. Families have had enough of press releases about enhanced visiting and are not prepared to tolerate being separated any longer. The Cabinet Secretary has claimed she's powerless to act and that only care home owners and public health can. So will the Cabinet Secretary agree to immediate all-party talks so that we can look at whether we need to bring emergency legislation before this Parliament to facilitate safe, regular contact with our family members in care homes?
Cabinet Secretary.
So I'm always willing to talk to all parties and regularly do, and I'm happy to have that conversation that Mr Findlay talks about. The latest information I have before we roll out the lateral flow devices is that about 40% of our care homes, where they do not have an outbreak, are facilitating indoor visits. Of that number, a number will be facilitating those 4-hour visits. But as Mr Findlay says, what we do, what I can do, is issue continually improving guidance. I think the guidance that we issued for Christmas and New Year is significantly improved in making it really clear what care homes can do, what visitors can do, and what precautions people need to take, along with the rollout of that regular asymptomatic visitor testing. Then all of that is designed to give care homes where they are unsure about the risk they might be taking in terms of following the guidance on visiting, more confidence in how they do that. And we also intend to work with Scottish Care, continue the work, and with others to look at specific care homes where they have specific problems. But as I said, I'm very happy to meet members across the Chamber to discuss this further.
Neil Findlay.
That's excellent, Cabinet Secretary. I'm delighted that you have accepted that, and I hope that your office can facilitate that happening later today or tomorrow morning, because this is an absolute emergency for families. The Cabinet Secretary quotes a 40% figure. Maybe at that meeting she could provide us evidence of that, because care home residents who have done surveys report less than 10% of care homes providing that type of access. We heard in October that there would be the extension of indoor visits from 30 minutes up to 4 hours. I know no one who has had a 4-hour or anywhere like it, a 4-hour visit. Outdoor visits up to 6 visitors. Increased personal interaction, including hugs and hand-holding, and as long as PPE and infection prevention control measures are met. This is fantasy for most families. I certainly had a dream of that happening. I'll ask a question when I get around to it. Don't be so ignorant.
All right. I'm sorry.
This is an extremely important issue. If you think this is not
Order,
an important issue,
please,
you need to have a word with yourself. Clown.
Excuse me, just Mr Findlay, a second. Order, please. Let's not have bad-tempered comments or exchanges across the table. Mr Findlay, that particularly goes for you. You're on the floor and you have the microphone. No one else has the microphone, so continue,
Absolutely,
please.
Presiding Officer. So families, this is really important for families. I've spoken to families over the weekend who are prepared to take action that they really do not want to take, and that would include the withholding of care home fees, and it would include legal action. Cabinet Secretary, please do not force families into taking that. Let's have those talks this afternoon or tomorrow, and let's see how we can remedy this, because this is absolutely critical.
Cabinet Secretary.
So I don't disagree for a minute with Mr Findlay about how important this is, how important it is to families and to residents. I hear it when I meet the care home relatives group, as I have done most recently last week. I also hear it, of course, from my own constituents and indeed from my own family, so I understand it absolutely. I'm very happy to see what more we can do, but we should also be straight with people about the limitations, either in time frame or in action, about what more we as a government can do. Now, I'm happy to discuss that, but let's not pretend that there is anything we can do to force care homes to follow the guidance and open up for visiting in circumstances where that is not what they wish to do. Either A, that we can do it, so that needs to be considered, or B, if we did want to do it, we could do it quickly. I'm happy to look at that and to discuss that, but let's not set this up as some kind of binary position that you're either on the right side or the wrong side. I actually think, Mr Findlay, you and I are on the same side here. I might not be moving fast enough for you. I might not be doing everything you want, but let's have the discussion to see what more is possible.
Thank you. Stuart McMillan to be followed by Donald Cameron. Stuart McMillan joins us remotely.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. We know that testing is no substitute for other vital layers of protection against COVID-19 and most importantly, following the facts guidance. In light of this, will the guidance published following the trial phase include specific instructions for visitors regarding how to follow infection prevention and also control measures?
Cabinet Secretary.
The guidance already does do that, and also for care homes themselves and for care home staff about how to help visitors follow the right PPE and hand hygiene guidance. And of course, as Mr McMillan knows, the point about PPE is not just the PPE you use, but the safe way that you put it on and in particular take it off, and the setting in which you should do that. So he's absolutely right. Testing is an important additional measure, but on its own it's not sufficient. It needs to be surrounded by all of those other areas. PPE, absolutely, but also good quality infection prevention and control in the care home setting or the hospital setting itself.
Donald Cameron to be followed by Willie Rennie.
Thank you. I spoke to a group of care home relatives yesterday, and it's clear that as time goes on, both their anguish and frustration grows. One issue that they mentioned was the delays in health boards, public health departments, in processing risk assessments from care homes. Does the Cabinet Secretary acknowledge that problem, and what can she do to solve it?
Cabinet Secretary.
So the care home relatives have raised directly with me two issues around risk assessments. In some instances, and it wouldn't be fair to think that this is the case across the whole country, but some instances where the risk assessment takes a bit too long to be completed, and other instances where it feels to them that the guidance that they're receiving is inconsistent between one area and another on a comparable issue. So we have begun the conversations, the continued conversations with our Directors of Public Health about what we can do to address those, bearing in mind that Directors of Public Health are senior clinicians and therefore they too have to exercise their judgment, their professional and clinical judgment on individual circumstances, and they need to have the room and the flexibility within the overall approach that allows them to do that. But that discussion is underway to see if there's anything more we can do to improve that particular position.
And Willie Rennie.
Care home managers and operators are scarred by what happened in March, and that's why it's really important that we, everybody in this Parliament, stands with them as they seek to make this difficult decision about allowing residents to meet their families in the care homes. But being safe and well is not just about the normal things we regard in terms of the virus. It's also about quality of life. And that's why I want the residents to meet their families as often as possible, and I'm sure the Health Secretary agrees. So what more can we do to build the confidence of the care home operators and managers to make this difficult decision?
Cabinet Secretary.
So in consultation with Scottish Care, but also directly, I have met a number of care home providers to hear what more they think they need. And one of the things that they have all said is, they've said two things actually: additional support in terms of the additional administration work that they need to do, booking visitors and other areas, including our safety huddle tool that gives them more work to do, and also testing for visitors. I have now done both. We have provided additional financial support so that additional staff can be recruited in order to take on that additional administrative and other work, and we are now rolling out lateral flow devices to provide that testing. So we will then follow that through to see whether or not the care homes who told me all of that, now that they have the answers to what they said would help them feel safer and more confident about visitors visiting and for longer, and in the circumstances that Mr Finlay described, whether that now comes to pass or whether there is more that they need to do or that we need to do to support them.
Thank you. Move on to question 2. Donald Cameron.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccination programme.
Cabinet Secretary Jean Freeman.
The first vaccinations began across all NHS mainland boards today. NHS Orkney will begin tomorrow, Western Isles on the 10th and Shetland on the 11th. Initial vaccinations are for NHS and social care staff, as I outlined in my statement last week, and those vaccinations will take place in 21 sites close to the vaccine deployment centres. From next week, care homes and those aged 80 and over who are inpatients, we will begin to vaccinate them. 3 webinar training sessions led by our Deputy Chief Medical Officer, Dr Steedman, have been held for the Pfizer vaccine, with a total of 4,035 attendees, a mix of vaccinators, pharmacists and other clinical colleagues. The vaccine management tool went live from Tuesday the 1st of December, and all cohort data for over 80s, for care home residents and for health and social care workers has now been matched and shared with boards so that we can manage the data flow as people are vaccinated. And finally, the free phone Scottish COVID-19 vaccination helpline went live today on 0800 030 8013.
Donald Cameron.
Can I thank the Cabinet Secretary for that answer? Last week, the First Minister and the Cabinet Secretary committed to publishing the COVID-19 vaccination plan reviewed at Cabinet, as well as a national list of vaccination centres and information on how many storage freezers are in each health board. Can the Cabinet Secretary give the Chamber a fixed date for the publication of that information, and if not, any indication when this data will be published?
Cabinet Secretary.
I can indeed. That information will be sent to all members of this chamber and be lodged in SPICE tomorrow. It will also include other information that I hope assists members in terms of answering their constituents' questions on the safety of the vaccination, the regulation process and so on. And we will follow that iteratively. The one point I would make and ask members to please hold on to is that as supplies arrive, as new vaccines might be approved, then of course the plans and the information we send you needs to be updated. So we will be very clear in the information that we give you, the time frame that that information covers, and you should then expect updates to that as more information is available to us and through us to you.
Donald Cameron.
Thank you. We now know that we have enough vaccine to vaccinate approximately 32,000 people. In terms of reaching that figure, can the Cabinet Secretary tell us how many people approximately will be vaccinated this week? Will that 32,000 number be reached by the end of December? And further, will the Government commit to publishing a rolling update of the numbers vaccinated each week?
Cabinet Secretary.
So we hope that we'll be able, towards the end of this week, to give an indication of the numbers who have been vaccinated in this first week, remembering that the first week is not comparable to any other weeks because our vaccinators are handling a new vaccine and so they need to be sure about how they're doing it. That's why we're doing it, in part why we're doing it at those vaccination centres near to the deployment sites for the vaccine. And thereafter, we are currently considering the frequency with which we would publish data that is robust and therefore publishable, and I'm very happy to let members know what time frame we will then operate that on. And again, information will be sent to members as we are confident of the robustness and accuracy of that information. The final point to make, Presiding Officer, if you'll forgive me, is that, as I heard Matt Hancock say this morning on GMS, we have an indication of the volume of supply, but what we need to do, remembering that the 174 approval that Pfizer have for this vaccine, the approval to supply, means that it needs to be batch tested, every single batch. So that will streamline over time, but initially that creates an extra element, if you like, in the delivery chain. And so we need to be confident that the vaccines, as they arrive in the UK and are tested and so on, and are on their way to us, at that point we can say how many additional doses we then have. And as we get to those various points throughout this month and into the next, we will make sure that members are aware of that.
Thank you. I'm actually going to squeeze in a couple of supplementaries if the questioners can be brief. David Torrance, followed by Monica Lennon.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. What plans does the Scottish Government have to encourage maximum uptake of the vaccine for eligible groups?
Cabinet Secretary.
So there are a number of plans in train, not least, of course, proper information for informed patient consent. As I said last week, the household information to every household in Scotland, which will take place at the beginning of March. There will be other aspects of marketing and public information. And as we finalise that overall information plan over this month and next, and probably into February, again, we'll make sure that that is also issued to members so they can know what to expect. But a lot of it initially is around the safety, the regulatory process, what to expect, and so on, so that they can answer constituents' questions.
And briefly, Monica Lennon.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all the staff involved in the vaccination programme. I was concerned to hear that some staff phone lines were jammed yesterday with frontline workers trying to book appointments for their vaccine. I know that NHS Lothian have apologised. Can I ask the Cabinet Secretary what resources are in place to ensure that we don't get jammed phone lines? And will all the helplines and phone lines be free of charge? NHS Lothian have said that they will reimburse workers who had to wait a long time to queue for an appointment.
Cabinet Secretary.
So we're talking about one board here out of 14 that had that difficulty. As Ms Lennon has said, they have apologised. They've ensured that they have additional resources. Of course, boards are more likely to issue appointments and information to staff by email because we prioritise within the patient-facing group of NHS employees in order to ensure those NHS employees most at risk from the virus are the ones that we see first. And understandably, perhaps NHS staff are enthusiastic about this vaccine. That's a good. And are contacting their board to make sure that they can book an appointment. So we make sure that the phone lines, where the phone lines are the right source for staff or for anyone else, are adequately resourced. Certainly our national helpline is. But NHS staff should know that two things I think that's really important. One, patient-facing NHS staff, particularly in COVID red areas. So that's, we're talking about ICU, HDU, COVID wards and so on, including also in primary care, and our ambulance service will be the ones contacted first. Often that will be by an email to their work account. Often that may be in the initial stages, relatively late notice, as we know that supplies are arriving and boards need to know for sure that a supply is arriving before they should issue appointments. All of this will smooth out over the coming weeks, but initially we will have those glitches and interruptions. As long as we make sure that we keep on at pace every time that we have supplies of the vaccine, that we are ready to vaccinate those who need it in the order of priority that JCVI has set out for us.
Thank you very much. That concludes topical questions. We're going to move on. Sorry, the next item of business